They were saying our currency is doomed. Our
Yeah.
economy is doomed. We are under sanctions since decades.
A lot of investors are panicked about the situation.
India could not buy from the Middle East, so India had to buy from Russia. And that created a new geopolitical tension because it was like as if Indian money was financing the Ukraine-Russia war. Then, Mr. Trump came in and he wanted to use tariff as a policy tool.
Hi, everyone. Um, Welcome back to Founders Decoded. And we have Tushar back again. We have such a positive response from Tushar. And currently, the man is very popular as well as like he don't need an introduction. But at the same time, uh, to summarize, um, again, who did not follow the last episode, uh, just in one sentence or two sentences, tell us about yourself so that people can remember you forever.
I'm a finance professional with 25 years of experience into venture capital, debt, structured debt, and IPO investments. And I love being an expert speaker about a variety of things. And I like to, this is my way of giving back. And I've done more than 1,000 since the last 10 years, which are all available in the public domain.
Yeah.
And this is my second one with you, and lovely to have a conversation with you on this important subject.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
for
much.
having
We
me.
are very happy to have you here. And there are things that are happening in the world that is kind of scaring a lot of people. One, panic among investors. Two, panic among people. And three, that in future circumstances, how can we make sure that we are secure in with respect to energy, with respect to food? Because you don't want countries to suffer from not of lacking food and then like it drives us to other civil wars. But we should not go to that extreme. But what are your opinions on like one by one? Like a lot of investors are panic about the situation, and the only investment sector that I see the booming one currently is oil. And I know there is a demand for it, and it touched $100. And probably people are saying it can go to 150 or $180 a barrel. So let's start with investor panic. What
Well,
do you think?
so it's on a continuum, right? Like, so first the Ukraine-Russia war started.
Yeah.
Ukraine was the wheat bowl of Russia, and 20% of global wheat comes from Ukraine, and it's a very rich source of gas and fertilizers, and so the whole thing got impacted, and Europe was under pressure not to take oil and gas which transited from Ukraine, the Russian oil and gas. So
Yeah.
they started buying from the Middle East, and
Mm.
uh, India could not buy from the Middle East, so India had to buy from Russia, and that created a new geopolitical tension because it was like as if Indian money was financing the Ukraine-Russia war from the Russian side. And those kind of pressures kept on building on the supply chains. A lot of pressures were there because China and US were fighting, and not physically fighting, but economically entangled. And China had curbed rare earth, a supply chain with 90% of rare earth under the control of Chinese. And then, Mr. Trump came in, and he had, he wanted to use tariff as a policy tool to change the way the global trade was structured uh, from a legacy point of view. And it's like the US uh, provided a lot of technology and leadership in the manufacturing space across the world, and especially by creating capacities in China. And the whole thing was that the US dollar will be used for global trade, and even today, more than 50% of global trade happens in the dollar. And there was a unsaid, understanding that the dollar will be used for global trade, the SWIFT network will be used for global trade, and the US will not put any tariffs on
Yeah.
those people, those manufacturing plants in China and other places which wanted to sell to the US. So
Yeah.
this whole system kept on working for decades and decades, and once the U.S. economy started facing a little bit of problem because in the Russia-Ukraine war, the U.S. blocked $300 billion of Russian investments in the U.S. And that led to some loss of faith of the countries in the US Treasury bonds,
Yeah.
because they thought that if Russian money can be blocked, then their money
Any
can
money.
also. So that has meant that the US is having to print more dollars and take more debt on the government. Mr. Trump, clearly a nationalist, very popular guy in the US with his MAGA base, Make America Great Again. He thought that let me upend the whole system, and in a way, whatever disadvantage the US businesses have, let me
Yeah.
change it. So he started with tariffs because he said, why are we levying zero tariff on imports,
Yeah.
whereas China is not allowing any exports from US to China?
Hmm.
So, so he started by touching the tariff theme, and also in a way the China plus one strategy, telling the U.S. businesses to shift from China, and that led to little bit of recalibration, not too much. Some businesses moved out from China to Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, Mexico, and Mexico and Canada was seen as reshoring. But Mr. Trump, he took on the Canadians and the Mexicans also, saying that we are supporting your countries too much. And since the investment in Treasury, US Treasury bonds is not coming, so the debt on US is increasing. And
Yeah.
he has to find a way out of that
Yeah.
increasing debt. So he made the Dodge department with Elon Musk and said that let me reduce the cost, the expenses by $2 trillion. But state and government capacities, when they get set up, a lot of lobbies and entrenched interests start getting
Yeah.
using that money. So it is very difficult to shut down departments. It's very difficult to shut down hospitals.
Backlash on it. Just want to
Yeah.
intervene.
Yeah, because US is a big infrastructure. Like US has huge hospitals. It has
Yeah.
airports and ports and ships, and the whole infrastructure. You can't cut cost just like that.
Yeah.
So Elon was able to cut cost by around $160 billion, not much. And because he could not make much headway, so he left the Dodge department.
Mm.
So what is happening is that Mr. Trump has opened a new front. So, he was already fighting on the economic front with China. He was already trying to stop the Ukraine-Russia war. He already tried to stop the Israel by making the board of peace to rebuild Gaza, and he was doing all of that, and suddenly this Iran war has come in, which has complicated things a bit.
Yeah. There was a lot of things that led to this situation, and both internal and external. And people think that this is a ploy and shift from discussing of Epstein files, but I think like Ray Dalio, uh,
You said it, Revant.
I said it.
It is actually related to Epstein, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I feel that, and that's
but
my view.
I think it's not just Epstein, because like when you want to hold power for a longer time, I think that when US is in a state of war, president and Congress can postpone the elections. So I think it also comes from there. And people think that, oh, he said it's going to happen in a week or something, but I think
You
he
can't
knows that
just
as well.
stop wars and start wars by the click of a button, right? I mean,
Yeah.
um, and there are reports to say that Epstein's operations were under Mossad. Like he had all those things set up with all the top rich people, powerful people, and
Hmm.
all those proofs of all those things. And uh, but the thing is, like, there is a moral uh, angle also to the Iran thing, which is
Hmm.
that countries had signed up the non-proliferation treaty, under which they could not develop nuclear weapons, and Iran is a signatory to that.
Yeah.
And in spite of being a signatory, it first of all developed missiles which were very dangerous, and then they were enriching uranium.
Yeah.
So there was a legal angle to it as well, which was that the US is the police. US does the policing of the world, so they had to do something about it to stop the uranium enrichment by Iran.
Yeah.
Um, and there are certain controversial things, like when Mr. Trump had come for the first time, then the US and Iran, they had signed a deal under which Iran was supposed to cut back on the nuclear development part. But
Mm.
as per the proof given by Europeans, and that Iran was not cutting back in reality.
Mm.
So there is a legal basis to it. If you allow one country to develop nuclear weapons in spite of being a signatory to non-proliferation treaty, then what
Yeah.
happens to the 160, 170 others? Do you allow
Definitely.
them also?
And we also made a peace act not to use nuclear and reduce them. And these sanctions are making
Right.
every country to increase their nuclear pile. And how do you think, like, again, such treaty is given a value to it, and how can one nation can trust another slowly because of these actions and consequences? Because after World War II ended, we, like, world was in a brink of several wars, like, ended at the same time, financial collapses. There is a lot, and all these treaties kind of kept at least a little peace in the world.
Yeah, they
And
did for a number of years.
now, um, so many countries are going away from the treaties. And
I'll give you three examples. One is uh, that Libya. So
mhm,
Gaddafi was developing nuclear weapons,
mhm,
uh, and dangerous ballistic missiles, intercontinental continental missiles, and he was promised that his security will be taken care of, but he should give up nuclear weapons. He did, and
yeah,
then look what happened to Gaddafi.
yeah,
Then Ukraine had nuclear weapons because Soviet Union used to use the Ukrainian region as a nuclear base.
yeah,
So when Soviet Union came down, Ukraine had a lot of nuclear weapons. They gave
yeah,
it up. And one can make a case that look, Russia would not have attacked if Ukraine had nuclear weapons. And the third case is North Korea.
yeah,
China has given nuclear weapons to North Korea, and generally South Koreans or Japanese or US, they don't generally touch North Koreans much
yeah,
because that madman Mr. Kim Jong Un is there.
yeah,
So you know, it is quite a dicey situation.
yeah. Definitely, nuclear is scary. after looking at Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And
And
I never trusted Mr. Khamenei with nuclear weapons. For me, like a guy who can kill his own people, 40,000 just last month. Um, you know, Getting that guy to have nuclear weapons is like not done. You can't
yeah,
trust that guy.
I agree. Like in general, when they're also fighting for power, but at the same time, like Iran was also in dictator regime for so long. And
Yeah, for like I think 30, 40 years, and they have a whole revolutionary guards which are religious in nature, and they are not secular and they are not democratic. And then you
mhm,
have the clergy which holds power, and thousands of clerics who hold actual power, and they are not guided by the welfare of Iranian people. They are
yeah,
guided by theological reasons because for them upholding the religion matters more than any person.
yeah,
They have proved it time and time again.
yeah,
So if you give uh, people who value religion over a common person in your country, then you can't allow them to have nuclear weapons. So, I
yeah,
support what Mr. Trump was trying to do. But, this war came out like just
yeah.
like a bolt from the blue. Like, I never imagined that they will go all in. And missiles would be flying in Dubai and Qatar and Oman and Kuwait and unbelievable.
I did not think missiles would definitely fly in through the Middle Eastern countries, but based
1 crore.
on so there was this before the war started. So there is this guy who built a World Monitor app, and it actually tracks like all the movements in like shipping, navy. Somehow he tracked several things, and US Navy was also near Iran. And it was
Yeah,
also on the news. Yeah,
they were positioning themselves. Yeah.
yeah,
And Iranians were saying, okay, we'll sign a nuclear deal again and we'll give up nuclear weapons. But nobody trusted them because
yeah,
last time they didn't go by the spirit of the agreement.
yeah, uphold the agreement on nuclear.
Yeah. Because, just imagine you allow Iran to have nuclear weapons, then Saudi
Yeah,
goes nuclear, then Dubai goes nuclear,
yeah,
then Turkey starts getting jittery. Then, one day 50 countries have nuclear weapons.
yeah, definitely. And
Oil
also
money
like,
with nuclear weapons.
yeah, and also you have um, other countries that um, not other countries. Iran kind of also funds a little bit of terrorism as well. That's
Yeah, not little
Hezbollah
bit.
and
Their
yeah,
favorite letter is H. Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas.
hmm,
And imagine I was talking to some Iranians who are based in India. They were saying our currency is doomed. Our
yeah,
economy is doomed. We are under sanctions since decades.
yeah,
The inflation is so much, the poverty is so much, and Iran is a rich place. It has
mm,
oil, it has gas. And where is that money going? That money
yeah,
is going to fund terrorists across the world.
and
Hezbollah,
yeah,
Hamas, Houthis, and in Iraq. And
yeah,
uh, and they revolted. They come on the streets. They have been coming on the streets, and
yeah,
every time it is put down, and thousands are killed.
yeah, definitely. And they're just using the religion as a mask to do all this while filling their pockets.
Yeah, because see, Khomeini was a cleric. For him, since childhood, he had studied religion, and for
Yeah,
him, upholding religion is why he and he made the whole system around upholding the Shia version of Islam.
yeah,
And so he spent money anti-Israel, anti-US, and in all those things. And
yeah,
perpetually, Iran was under sanctions, and instead of spending that money for the welfare of Iranians, developing a
Yeah.
nuclear bomb and Shahid drones and whatnot, like it is very bad situation for the Iranian people. They are
Yeah.
very beautiful people and very, very supposed to be a civilization in itself, the Persian civilization, and
Yeah.
uh, very sad.
I have a lot of basically like people that I met across when I was going to college as well as in my previous workplaces. And they do really, a lot of people that I met are kind of scholars because they
Yeah, they are
want,
looking for education, the Iranians.
yeah,
Yeah.
they value the education as well as like they they do ton of research. Like the people that I met, they were doing ton of research on photonics, and at that time, I think around 7 years back, 6 or 7 years back, photonics on chip was very hard, and at that time they were doing that in few of the companies that in the area, and I was like, oh, this will be very interesting to come into life because if you mix photonics and transistor technology, then like you can reduce the amount of power consumption. And this is a different topic, but like, do you
So
think 1
basically,
million?
brilliant minds from Iran. Like,
Mm,
I had a client from Iran. This guy was a computer scientist, and
mhm,
he had created some new technology. So he kept on. He had based his business in DIFC in Dubai,
mhm,
and very well read, very soft spoken, very intellectual, very keen, and understood technology really well. So I was like, amazing. Where did you study? He said, I studied in Iran, and I
yeah,
said, like, I'm sure the level of technology absorption in colleges in Iran must be good. He said it is good in some colleges, and
yeah,
yeah, so that was great to see.
yeah, yeah. And it is definitely like even one of my house owners previously was Iranian retired doctor from Beverly Hills on plastic surgery. And I don't know how many houses he has now, but at the time he had 28 units or something. I was like,
In
wow,
US,
in
doctors get paid
US.
so much in US. Yeah,
Yeah, and he retired and he started like buying houses near USC. So like he only gives houses to USC students. So basically like it's a who's this guy? Robert Kiyosaki's theory. Fill in one, fill the other. So like literally like he has 28 units
rich dad,
and
poor dad.
rich dad poor dad, and he again changes house every year because for tax purposes. Interestingly, I came to know that like on first year of housing you have lesser tax compared to the second and third if you have multiple houses.
Yeah,
So
I read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in graduating from school,
yeah,
and it was given to be my one of my aunties, and
yeah,
she said you must read it. It will light a fire of entrepreneurship in your mind, and make you think more about investing the money and managing the money rather than doing a job.
yeah,
And yeah, so I mean, it did, like, it did light a fire in me at that
definitely.
time.
I think it was an inspiration for a lot of people, uh, the book and how he spoke. And there are people that who did not agree with him. There are people who agreed with him, and he made a ton. And his theory is like in a simplest way put, like that is also kind of like you can treat it as equity, like to invest in again and again when you're having multiple businesses to run through. And that's how. world works, and um, just made me think of the Rich Dad Poor Dad when we said energy and data centers in space. And I was doing some metrics actually, and noticed that like 1 million data centers would take almost $400 trillion to launch.
See, the
So,
whole many people on the street, on the Wall Street, are saying that the whole economics does not add up for
yeah,
the kind of thing which OpenAI, Oracle, and all these Nvidias they are trying to do with the data center infrastructure.
I think it is just a, how do you say, a ploy to make people invest more. But there will be some data centers in space, definitely. Not saying
Yeah,
not, but
yeah,
I'm saying like the energy needs to be reduced, the weight of the data center needs to be reduced. Currently, like 1 kg takes like almost 4,000 to $7,000 on a good day. And
right.
maybe other places sometimes it can be cheaper, but still, even if you take like 1/10 of that or 1/100th of that, still you need overall $4 trillion. And it is a ploy like where, oh, I think to go to Mars, I need some more money, but at the same time, like, what can I do? Distraction. And I don't know. I do definitely want to do intersolar system travel. I can't use intergalactical yet. Uh, but I think like what currently like Elon says and delivers, there are definitely some things that he delivered. Uh, it would not have been possible without him delivering like 88 days to Australia on power, but at the same time, like um, on the economic side of Tesla, you can have a slightly higher range that you don't need to charge, but they don't do that because they want the superchargers making money as well. Because Lucid made a car, I think almost 600 miles, but it was too expensive for people. And not just,
Frankly, when
yeah,
Elon Musk says he wants to colonize Mars, I don't see that as a practical reality. But it is a great statement to excite a large number
yeah,
of people. Uh, make them into dreamers, and then
yeah,
he's achieving as well, like the SpaceX rockets and.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Like SpaceX has the most number of satellites currently in space compared to any other
yeah,
company.
that's
I think
awesome.
there are 9,000 satellites
Yeah,
SpaceX has in the span
correct.
of almost 10 or 15 years that they started. And which is a great achievement because reusable rockets were needed on, they were on the books, but at the same time, no one did. And that was one of the greatest achievements because um, once, what is this? Rocket engines land, sorry, remove from the booster, they basically have the separation and fall into ocean, which is basically zero, versus like it is
Yeah.
still something. So
That was amazing. The day the whole thing came down and went into a hook.
yeah, the
Uh,
spaghetti
it was
catch.
awesome. Like
Yeah,
it was such a thing. Like I'm 100% sure his SpaceX valuation would have gone up by $200 billion that day.
yeah, it is. I
Because
think.
and I heard that the guy who planned it out, the head of that team, was an Indian. Like
Oh,
yeah,
I think like the which is possible, but also very challenging. If that is done frequently, successful, then like um, launching satellites would be a lot easier because you don't have to again transport these um, engines or
yeah,
like separated boosters uh,
correct.
back. And definitely, I think there will be more future success towards that. Wish, and there's one more company that started doing reusable, I think, called Rocket Lab, and
Mhm.
they're also on federal contracts, but it is astonishing. They're also like accelerating their development. And I think last year they had 60, sorry, uh, towards last year starting, they had 60 launches or something. Now they have done successfully 83rd launch. So monthly two launches, which is interesting.
Makes a
And
lot of difference. Like,
yeah,
there is something about rockets which fascinates humanity, right? I mean,
yeah,
because because you are exploring the unknown, and
yeah,
it is the highest point of technology where so many technologies work in tandem to achieve a rocket launch. And I
yeah,
remember when India had sent the rover to the moon.
hmm,
It was, such a proud moment, and everybody
yeah,
felt energized, and technology takes center stage in those moments, and people
yeah.
start um, saying that yes, we should invest more in technology, produce more technology,
I
and
agree.
yeah, these
In
kind
nine,
of
sorry,
achievements are like, they are very, very energizing for the entire
yeah,
technology community, and as well as for the country as well.
yeah, definitely. And also, like, I feel fascinated in 1969 when we barely had mobile phones. We went to, we barely had any phones. We
Yeah.
went to space and came back with. I met a guy that who basically made those IBM systems at that point of time,
Wow.
working. So I was astonished, and at the same time, like he was telling like how reliable they are, and it is interesting to think of on reliable standpoint and where Voyager 1 is and what our next space missions are. I also think in contrast, like in 12th century or something, people used to travel in ships for exploring in the world, and this is like 21st century version of that, but in a more
But Rivant, one thing, like, since we are talking about the whole technology theme here,
yeah,
somehow, like, I have seen the dot-com thing, 1988, 1999. I've seen 2008 boom years,
yeah,
2006 to 7, 8. And then I've seen how Google, and they became trillion-dollar companies, and Microsoft after Satya Nadella, and like I've been witnessing this entire thing, but somehow in the AI theme,
yeah,
I'm pretty convinced about the AI case, especially after Claude, proved that they can do a lot of sophisticated things with their latest version. But
yeah,
still, the kind of money which goes into data centers and setting up the whole, you yourself said trillions of dollars.
yeah,
I don't kind of get the good feeling this time about this kind of investment, because I think, ultimately the customer has to pay for it. So
yes,
whether there will be sufficient business to recoup this money,
yeah,
um, that's a question mark.
definitely, because like they're doing several models at this point, and each model takes different number of credits. When power consumption is reduced, I believe that like there should be less investment be able to make on operational cost. So when operational costs are reduced, um, and even if we maintain the same innovation pace, currently the monetization is happening through two ways: subscription and tokenization. And
No, but
having,
just your views on this. Two
yeah,
things which I observed about the AI thing.
yeah,
One is when DeepSeek suddenly showed what it could do with very less money as compared to Chat GPT and OpenAI, the kind of money which OpenAI was burning.
Yeah.
It did set a very, the markets had tanked by 15% that day, the US
Yeah.
markets. So, definitely there has to be a way of doing the same thing with less money. And
Yeah, definitely.
secondly, the revenue numbers which uh, all these AI companies are showing, achieving, Perplexity, Grok, and Claude and others. Although it is good, the revenue is good, but still, somehow it is not looking so promising. And thirdly, if all these AI tools
Mm.
are trained on the same data, then where is the
Hmm.
differentiator?
Yeah.
End of the day, where is the differentiator? Where is that additional data, proprietary data or otherwise, which makes them different from others? So
Yeah.
these things are my concerns.
Definitely, data is a huge concern at this point where everyone feels kind of ex exposed. And also, like all this, have you seen recently someone used Claude to hack into an entire country records? And he basically said, I'm doing this to check if there are any vulnerables in the system. But at the same time, like he's not a government personnel to do that. But doing that kind of shows like how AIs can be vulnerable as well. I think that's when like quantum computing, quantum encryption comes into the picture, and it is still not there yet, but I think it
Mark,
will
you're
be.
a tech guy. Tell me something. Quantum computing has been around since so many years. Why hasn't it made a case for itself till date?
I see that there is innovation, but there should be more materials that would um, break the barriers of physics, and that's when quantum
It's a
computing.
problem around commercialization of quantum AI. It might
So
be residing in the labs and research departments more.
So what I came to know when I started studying quantum related is experimental quantum needs 1 million qubits, so that it gives you 1,000 logical qubits. So what this 1,000 logical qubits are? They are error free, noise free, and basically they can do any computation. So having that gives you an ideal quantum computer, and you can do 2 power 1,000. You can do actually 2 power 1,000,000, but uh, let's just stick to logical qubit computation. Then what happens with probability? So, like with respect to currently, quantum experimentation is done by, hey, I'm giving you 1,000 shots. So you're repeating the experiment 1,000 times or 2,000 times and giving me outcome. Like the probability, it will show the probability of the outcome. And when there is noise and everything, like, oh, this is this like noise errors, so then your probability gets messed up. And if you don't address that, your
So it's
computation
not
will be
perfect.
mistakes.
It's not ripe for commercialization for people to use it. It must be very costly for not to bring it to regular people, right? Customers.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I think it will be there at some point in next five
Yeah, there's a
to
lot of interest. Yeah.
yeah. And I was also building something in the background on quantum encryption because, like, I was that guy that who did not do PhD and still likes quantum physics. And nowadays, you can make encryption out of it a little bit. Like they are called post-quantum algorithms. So even like quantum computers cannot break. So that is interesting.
Yeah. And
And
so thing about US, like it has always maintained the lead in technology, even till
yeah,
today. Like, but some places China has come out. Like, I was seeing those. dancing robots in China, which were like simply awesome. But in most of the critical technologies, I think US still has a lead, and
Y-
the US universities are basically behind it. Or maybe it is these trillion-dollar companies who invest so much in research and development.
Yeah, definitely, because there is investment both in academic side as well as private sector. Private sector, after AI, private sector started moving a lot faster than research sector, and which is kind of keeping a lot of pressure on the schools. And a lot of education has been changed in the schools in recent after AI here. But I think the education that is happening in India is also changing because, like, previously there was ML AI courses, but now they are more
Yeah,
deeper.
many courses, many.
Yeah. And
Many courses. I know of my known people whose kids are doing a lot of AI courses, and MBA with the specific focus on AI, and a lot of things and 20% of world's AI engineers are from India.
yeah,
So uh,
definitely.
like there is a lot of talent. But they are more doing work on the apps, using the AI, and creating apps and use cases around
Yeah.
AI. And there is not much happening with the data center capacity because it requires a lot of investment and energy. For a populous country like India, that's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, currently our consumption is around 25 gigawatt hour, and adding just 17 data center, sorry, adding 23 data centers that are 1 gigawatt hour can literally,
Just shake the whole thing up.
yeah,